Welcome to MMT Chats. This episode is brought to you by ISCAR with new ideas for machining intelligently. Hey MMT followers, I'm Christina Fuges with MoldMaking Technology, and my guest today is Ben Lampron, VP for Metro Mold and Design, Consumer and Industrial in Rogers, Minnesota. And he may be familiar to you because I did recently interview him and others from the Metro Mold team. But unbeknownst to me, Ben here has written a book that I believe not only has value to our next generation of mold making professionals, but also to our seasoned professionals, management, leadership, and ownership, who I believe can use this book as a tool to both attract and retain that next generation. I read the book myself rather quickly in one night. The book is it's all about offering to a young employee focusing on the whole person. I really think that's important. That's something that you hear a lot lately, but the book does a great job of the importance of focusing on the whole person. And we'll get into that. But first, hi, Ben.
Hi, Christina. How are you today?
Good, very good. All right, so to get started, why don't you give us a snapshot of who you are really quickly, just in case, and who Metro Mold and Design is?
Yeah, sure. Ben Lampron, Vice President of our commercial industrial business here at Metro Mold and Design. We're a contract manufacturer of plastics here in Rogers, Minnesota. We do everything from blow molding to thermoset molding to injection molding. So we have a kind of a complete gambit of production, and we're growing and really enjoying the trends.
So you've been there for what, a little over 3 years at Metro?
That's right.
So can you share a little bit about your exposure to mold making throughout your career, just to give people a sense of how well you know the community?
Yeah, sure. Here at Metro Mold and Design, we've got a team of mold makers here. And I would say, Christina, we make about 25% of our new molds in-house. The rest of them are shopped out to our partners around the greater Midwest, generally speaking. So we have a lot of exposure there. I was 23 years at Honeywell International in the process control division. And plastics were a key part of our supply chain. I was in charge of several factories back then. So knowing having molds be precise and be on time and building those relationships was really core to our production and core to our relationships with our customers. So it's been a long career involved in the industry, and it's made me part of who I am. So I'm really grateful.
Yeah. All right, so let's share your impression. Next generation, again, something thrown out a lot, something everyone's dealing with. Everybody has their notion of what that next generation, who they are, what they're like. What is your impression of the next generation in general, like when it comes to your family, your friends, and your community? And then more specifically, what you've experienced at Metro Mold and Design within the mold manufacturing community in terms of work ethic and what your book is pretty much about, career management and being prepared for life.
Sure. I think when kids go to school today, Christina, the amount of opportunities they have are countless. I mean, back when we were in school, I think we had more limited opportunities, more limited clubs and subjects at school, but today they have many, many more. And because of that, I think we've lost some focus on some key things like civics, right? The trades, personal finance, things that we used to learn in school. And so now they come to us, and I think it's our responsibility as leaders in the industry to really take them by the hand and teach them those things. I think, specifically in the mold making community here, we have a bunch of young folks who are really, really hungry to learn and come here ready to become part of our team, but lack those sort of beginning skills. So I'm calling on, here the leaders at MMD and our peers around the country to say, hey, let's be that beacon. Let's share with them the knowledge we know now so they can become better employees for us and our industry.
Absolutely. Again, the whole person, right? Happy person at home and outside of work makes them happy and productive at work. So it really is connected.
Yeah. I wanted to add on that, Christina. The age between 18 and 30, those 12 years, I think are just mission critical to have the building blocks solid. And what I'm finding is they get out of college or high school, and those first few years just kind of go by like a flash. And then they've lost them, and they're starting kind of too late. I think really hitting them early as leaders is really, really key to get them off to that great start.
Agree. Early is always better. So I know that you wanted to be a teacher, right? You were a boxer, which no insult here, but I wouldn't have thought that. And you are a coach, and you still coach. So to me, these roles directly correlate to why you wrote the book, right? So how about you give us a little bit, why don't you share how your life led you to write this book? And really importantly, why now?
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, my whole life, I was a basketball player when I was a kid. I boxed when I was in college. I came from a family of boxing. And so I was always really trying to find ways to win. I mean, I'm a scorekeeper. I'm a very competitive person. And even here at, Metro Mold, I shared with you during our last podcast, our metrics are pretty simple, right? Customer satisfaction and getting parts out the door. So to me, it's all about keeping score and holding yourself accountable. I feel like as I've been mentoring folks here at work and, in the basketball community, the needs of the folks are the same. They're hungry for knowledge. They're hungry to figure out, how do I get ahead? What steps do I have to take? And to me, it just became a natural progression of my life, wanting to share that with them. For some time, Christina, I've wanted to do call it a 3 or 4 point PowerPoint slide that I could just share with, here are the high points. Then COVID happened. And, we had some free time. And I had a couple of mentors in the industry who said, Ben, you know what? You ought to just write a book. And I got down to it. And I took the time during COVID to put my thoughts on paper, and it turned into the book.
So, all right. So literally, how you started, last April, May? I mean, this has all been in your head anyway, but when did you literally start the process of writing?
So I've had this little yellow notebook that I've carried around for 2 or 3 years. And I've always if I had an idea for the book, I would just write it down. Could be a sentence, could be a concept or a picture or a sketch. And it's kind of a weird looking book. It's full. I mean, it's full of just chock full of stuff. And I joined up with a publisher called Jones Media Publishing. Jeremy Jones runs that company, and he has a really interesting process that teaches the author how to go through the process of writing in a very logical way. And I'm an engineer, right? So it was the process resonated with me. And I started, I believe it was mid-October, with my first meeting with Jeremy, and by the end of January, I had it written. So it was kind of put the chapters down in sections, ideate around those chapters, write, edit, and if you're focused, you can get it done. But I tip my hat to Jeremy and his process for helping me get through it.
Plus, you had a passion for the topic too. So the fact that you had this little handbook or this notebook carried you through. So you were just ripe to get down to it. But I'm always curious as to the beginning and to the end. There is a process to writing, and it comes easier to others, some than others. So it's interesting that to me, that's pretty quick.
Well, one thing I learned, I took some of my Honeywell and MMD lean training to heart. And I had in my son's bedroom, actually, where I wrote the book, I had sticky notes like all over the walls. So I could with all thoughts, and I could organize the thoughts into different chapters. So eventually I had just columns of sticky notes, and then, writing from there was pretty straightforward. But like you said, I mean, I had a ball writing it. I have a ball talking about it. So to me, it's really one of my passions. So
that's awesome.
Labor of love, to say the least.
There you go. Yeah, labor of love. I can tell. So let's talk about the kids, right? The kids coming out of university or college versus those in the trades. I'm just curious. So everything that you bring up in terms of being knowledgeable about life and being prepared to what to do with the money once you have a job, taxes, marriage, all that kind of stuff. Do you have an opinion or an observation on, does one group of kids, young adults, coming out of college versus the trades, does one get it more than the other?
I don't think so. I think there isn't much difference at all. In fact, an observation I've made, Christina, probably in the last year, is that I think kids today are more homogenous than ever. When we were younger, we came from different towns, different backgrounds. We had to go to the library to get our information. Our teachers all came from
a library?
I know, an encyclopedia. And so today, the kids all go to the same Wikipedia article to do their homework. They're on the same social platforms. They follow the same influencers. So regardless of background or socioeconomic standing, I'm finding that they're talking the same. They think the same. And I don't know if that's all good, but I think we're creating a homogenous group of students these days that aren't that different from one another.
You have so many great tidbits in this book. So let's break some of them down. All right. I love the expression that you said, do not dilly-dally, in your book. That cracks me up because that is totally something that's a throwback. I can remember people saying that to me. You also say, make a deal with yourself. So let's explain what that means.
Well, first of all, dilly-dally is a throwback to my grandparents. So I'll throw that out there. My grandfather used to say that to me all the time. And to me, that means, don't waste time, right? We have one life to live, and it's not very long. So time is of the essence pretty much with everything, I think. But when it comes to making a deal with yourself, when it comes to, fitness, finance, your career, You got to think of it as like a task that's due. You owe it to yourself, just like you owe your boss or the federal government with your taxes or your teacher with your homework assignment. To me, if you make a deal with yourself and learn self accountability, there really isn't any greater tool out there, any handbook, any self-help book. Those are great, but self accountability and making deals with yourself to deliver, that is a trait that can be learned, it can be practiced, and it really, really helps you hone those skills to deliver. I think it's a really huge thing for people as leaders and as individual contributors.
I like how you said it can be learned, because I sometimes doubt that when I look at some of my younger family members and friends' kids, that's just the way they are. They're not organized. They don't think far enough ahead. They don't plan. So I like that you're saying this is something that they can pick up and learn if they pay attention to it, right? And read the right things and use the right tools. So that's encouraging.
Well, and the simpler the tool, the better. In my book, I go through, how to set up your financial budget, which I guess we'll talk about in a bit here. But simplicity is the key. It doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to exist. And, as you stumble and learn, you'll get your own routine in any factor of life. But like you said, self-accountability, making deals with yourself, to me, that's how I've led my life. And I think it's pretty powerful.
I think it is too. I guess it kind of relates to my next one, the theory of the power of starting strong. I absolutely, in my career, agree with that, starting strong. So why don't you break that down?
Yeah, in any endeavor, getting out to a great, strong start is just so huge. First, you set the tone for yourself, right? I know I can do this. I've established this level of credibility with myself and with others. Therefore, the expectation is I'll continue to do that. Furthermore, whether it's with a new boss, whether it's with someone you're dating, whether it's a new project you're starting, you'll set the expectation with them. And then, of course, you'll have the ever important benefit of the doubt, which, of course, really, really pays off when times get tough. I've thought about many times in my life, whether it be in sports, in my marriage, at work, that getting off to that good start right off the bat just puts you ahead and sets you up for success. A huge thing that once you learn how to leverage, great tool.
It is. It really is. So you call them anchors. How does an anchor fall into this career path process?
Yeah, this was a thing for me too, as I've struggled, emotionally throughout my life. We inevitably will backtrack. If you get in your career and you're cruising along, you're going to have a bad quarter or a bad year. If you're working out and you take a week off, you're not going to be able to lift the same amount of weight as you could before. And even in financial, we fall off the wagon sometimes and say, hey, I've spent a little bit too much money this month. But if you think about placing anchors in the ground for every new level of accomplishment, you've been there. You can tether yourself to it and pull yourself right back to it with confidence. And many times I've found, Christina, it takes taking a step backwards to then power your way forward to get to a new plateau. So those images of anchors in my head are really, really powerful. And I think you need them to keep going forward.
And it's actually, am I getting this right too? Like each time you set that new plateau, every time you fall, you're falling to a higher low, right? So you're just going to continue to move up. If you think
you are. And from a self-confidence standpoint, I know I've been there. I've been to that point already. So and I'm tethered to it. I just got to pull a little bit and then whipsaw myself past it and set a new high. That's how I think about anchors in my life. And I have another notebook. I'm a notebook guy. I have a notebook where I kind of keep personal highs for things I do in my life, and those anchors are where I hold on to.
Yeah, actually, that's probably key to this whole discussion too. Is even if you're not someone that journals, like there's a value in life just to making, whether it's your faith life, your work life, your personal life, your marriage, it's the value to write stuff down. If people, like you can even do it on your phone, right? Keep notes if you want. It's just to track thoughts, right? And feelings.
I'm kind of the old guy here at MMD. I come to a meeting and everyone else has their laptops open. I still have my notebook.
I know.
I think there's something fundamentally cool about writing it down, right?
Me too. I'm still a pencil and paper. I'm still Post-its. I'm still a list person. I still have my my regular day timer versus I do it on the phone too, but I have to have writing it down. There's something almost therapeutic about it, right? And checking stuff off. So keeps me moving. All right, culture. Culture is a huge topic and has been, especially I would say the past 5 years or so, like even within mold making, that's big. So I agree with that being really important in terms of career management. But what is more interesting to me is when you talked about identifying career opportunities with companies that possess ethical leadership. So I think I need you to explain exactly what that means, and then how the heck does somebody, even younger, go about figuring out how a company has that?
Well, one thing, Christina, that especially young people need to practice is two-way interviewing. When they come into an interview, they expect all the questions to come to them. Well, it's a two-way street.
Yep.
I think everybody really needs to understand and do as much research as they can on the companies they're going to join. Are they active in the community? Are the leaders on Facebook posting about United Way or whatever their charity is of choice? Are they good people? And of course, that can be faked and may not be totally wholesome. So when you're in your interview process, you got to ask specific questions. Where you work is where you're going to spend the most hours of your life, right? It's a huge investment in your time. So you really have to understand what they do as a company and what the individuals do there as people. I think there's not an exact science. You might make a mistake, but if you find after a couple of years of working at a place that that's true, it might be time to find a different place to go. You need to work for a place you believe in at the core, not just in what parts they're making.
I agree. And there's two things I want to say to that. One, that brings up an ongoing discussion within MoldMaking about looking at the companies, the shops, looking at their website and social media. Is it matching who you are? Because this next generation, or not even the next generation, anybody looking for a job is going to be looking online. So you better make sure you're honest and that what you're putting out there is actually matching who you are once they arrive there. And second, I remember like my very first job interview, I didn't ask any questions. It was funny how as you move on through your career, you do learn, it became easier and easier to take control of the interview. Like I know what I want now, what I don't like. So it is a good point to encourage that recent grad or young person, do that right away. As long as you know who you are and what you want out of life, you don't be ashamed or afraid to ask questions at that first interview, right?
Yeah, and Christina, here at MMD, we believe that the culture piece of it is at the core of why we should hire somebody. They come to us with a certain skill set. A guy can make tools, great. But if we're not culturally aligned, it's not a fit. And sometimes we've shaken hands and said, "You're a great person. Good luck." It's just not going to be a fit for us. Having those people in the right spot, it's just the synergies in terms of emotion and energy, huge. And I think that's benefited us and benefited our tool makers too.
Totally. And it saves time, right? Then why beat around the bush? Just, be honest with yourself. Like I said before, I'm a list person. So I also like you saying, do the hardest thing first thing in the morning, which is kind of what I do. It's a good approach to the workday. But maybe you can answer for me. So that hardest thing is sometimes going to take more time. So are you saying in that day, to finish that task at hand, or are you saying dedicate a certain amount of time? Like when do you move on from that hardest thing to the next thing when your list is just growing and growing, as everyone's lists are today?
Sure. It's interesting, Christina. I think it depends on the person. Typically, my hardest thing is like making that tough call to a customer, because we failed to ship a part, or, it's just emotionally hard, not necessarily technically difficult. And I just want to get that monkey off my back, right? I just want to deliver early in the day. So that's kind of what I meant in the book, something that's I emotionally don't want to do. Now, when there's tough projects, I'll typically hit those in the morning when I'm here before others. And, I have about a half an hour window where I look at my day, I think about the tough stuff I want to do. And if I can't get it done, Christina, at least I've made a plan or moved the ball down the field a bit to kind of keep it rolling. And I know things are happening in the background, but how you set the tone for the day by attacking something difficult really, gives you some energy and a boost in your day.
So what is a stopper?
Oh yeah, stopper. It's one of those things where you know it when you see it. Certain employees, when a task comes to them by email or it's delegated to them by a boss, it just kind of falls in their lap. They instinctively take it, they run with it, and they drive it to the ground and get it done. The others will forward the email or copy 20 people or pass it on. You really want to be a stopper in the workforce. Even if you don't really know how to do it, just by being a stopper, taking that task and trying will set you apart from 80% of the folks in the workforce and get you promoted.
It is so true.
Right? The buck stops with you and you can deliver for your superiors, that's going to get noticed. So in my book, I talk a lot about be a stopper and don't be a delegator.
I love that one, because that is a big problem today especially with the whole reliance on email. Because when you mention copying everybody, that happens everywhere. And I try so hard not to do that. And to me, what's key is responding too. Like I am somebody that prides myself, even if I'm not going to get the task done, I still like somebody to know that I got it and I read it and I'm going to work on it. When you send something and you never hear back, that's one of those things I don't know then. Then everyone's kind of vague. I'm assuming you got it. I'm assuming you're working on it. That's not me. So it kind of falls along the lines of a stopper.
Yeah, and I talk about communication in the book quite a bit and what you have as a responsibility in communication. Again, two-way street. If someone takes the time to write to you, you got to get back to them quickly. That's just the way the professional world works today, and it's
It
common
is.
courtesy.
Yep, it is. All right. So you mentioned that the basic table stakes of immediate success are put in time right away, be best at whatever you do, work until the job is done. Don't job hop, which I love that, but that is kind of the opposite of what's happening nowadays that I see. But you set a 5-year minimum. So why 5 year? What's happening in that time frame? Or what can somebody figure out?
Yeah, sure. So if you stay at a company for a year or two, the odds that you've gone through the ups and downs of a cycle in that company are very, very low. And to me, where real leadership and growth happens is during the rough times and the good times. And you need to see that entire cycle.
Okay.
Businesses have good years and they have bad years, and you have to learn how to navigate both of those waters. When you're having a great year, how do I extend that growth? How do I reinvest in the business? When I'm having a bad year, how do I learn from my mistakes and recover? And again, use those anchors to get back to where I was before. You can't do that in a year or two. And if you go from job to job, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, I'm not convinced you've learned anything, frankly, in terms of real leadership. So when I look at resumes, I say, is that less than 5 years? I mean, maybe it's 4 years, Christina. It doesn't have to be exactly 5.
Okay.
But if they've gone through a real couple of business cycles of ups and downs to become a wholesome leader.
Okay, I like that. That's a good explanation. You talk about cross-training your brain. Now, cross-training that's a big terminology in the industry too. But what do you mean by cross-training your brain?
Seeing other sides of the business. If you're in engineering, go spend some time with finance. If you're in sales, go spend some time in the quality lab. Really, really learn all the aspects of the business. And we try to do that at MMD. We talked about during our last podcast in terms of cross-training. I think it's important for folks who are in the quality lab, go spend a couple of days in the tool room, talk their language, understand how they think, because then your brain will really start understanding the business and will come up with ideas and ways forward that you wouldn't have come up with before. Same thing in fitness, right? If you cross-train your fitness, your body really becomes much more strong and active. I think it's the same thing with the brain and in our industry.
That's true. So what do you say to the young adult who's at a job, but the culture is just not that way? How do you recommend they, start creeping into other people's departments? What's a good strategy for making that happen for themselves?
Yeah, one thing I talk about in the book is career development and how each individual employee is really fundamentally responsible for their own career growth. We tend to think maybe naively that the company has our back. Like they're certainly looking for development where the next promotion is. I just don't think that's true, Christina. I think we all own our careers and really have to be transparent and vocal about our desires to learn more. If the culture is not that way, I still think the vast majority of companies, if you're forthcoming with your desires and are very aggressive, I think they'll find a way for you to get that done. But young people have to be cognizant of that and really take it to heart themselves. Someone's not going to hold their hand in most cases.
Exactly. There's no time for that. They need to be assertive, we'll say, right, to get that done.
Sure.
This other one's might be a hard pill to swallow when you say family first, then work as second, and from time to time, you might have to miss some, right, family function or a personal event for work. Now, in terms of next gen, and this might be a stereotype too, they tend to be very into work-life balance, which I actually envy them a lot. I think the ones that I work with tend to do that a lot better than me. I tend to be all in with work and sacrifice things where I probably shouldn't. And there's some regrets there, but they seem to be a lot more about flexibility and maybe maintaining that balance more. So when you say something that work is a very close second, like talk about that a little bit, like why and how, and I guess emphasize the importance of that and why.
Sure. I mean, I think it's pretty standard to accept that family should come first. That's what I believe. I mean, my family's first. It always has been. And I encourage the employees to do that too. But when you think about what's next in your life, I think especially earlier in your career, it has to be your job. For your family to be successful and to have the life you want to live, the job has to be part of that equation in terms of finances, in terms of your personal growth and where you're going to be as a contributing member of society. I think as you gain credibility and you earn more flexibility, more rights, you certainly can kind of have more leeway there. But I think early in your career, you gotta step up to the plate and do the job. I think, if it's a Tuesday afternoon and there's a happy hour calling with your friends, right, I'm not sure that's the right place to be, at least earlier in your career. I think you got to be at work and get the job done.
Yeah. It also comes down to, and I'm trying to remember myself back then. I mean, you're young, right? And times are exciting and you're meeting new people. It's just not natural, I would think, for the average young person entering the work world to want to say no to something. That's all part of life at that point, right? Because I think they think they're going to live forever. They think marriage is down the line. All that responsibility is coming. So, I'm working here, so there's a level of seriousness that they just might not get to, and maturity, right, comes with that. So I do agree with you that if they can attack that or understand that early, they're going to be better off. But I would
Well,
imagine that's kind of hard. We were all young once.
well, the name of the book is Jumpstart Your Future, right? So what you just described is perfectly normal. And,
Yeah.
and you might wake up one day and you're 30 years old and then you decide now it's time to invest. But if you really want to jumpstart your future, it's getting it at it right away when you're 22. And by the time you're 30, you've left everyone else in the dust, right? Your career, your personal life, your finances, your bank account are all way ahead of all those other folks. And if that sounds intriguing to you, that's what you got to do.
All right. Let's get into this dollars and cents, because I am not a numbers person, and this side of my life is a stress point. So the book to me broke it down very easily for even me to understand. So the gist of your advice is discipline and data. That's how I broke it down. So let's get into some of these areas and talk about data, because actually that applies a lot to mold making. You can't improve anything unless you have data. So that equates to your life and to your career. So talk about data, and then talk about, I think the expression was set it and forget it. So I'll let you just kind of break everything down, because I have to tell everybody out there, there's so much good information in this book, and it's an easy read, that I'm really just asking Ben to kind of breeze through some main points. So kind of take it away.
Sure. I come from an engineering background, so to me, data is kind of drives all of our decisions. So this is generally easy for me. But there's three things that I personally track with my wife, Christina. It's our net worth, our cash flow, and our expenditures. Having those scoreboards on a simple Excel spreadsheet, and we're kind of geeky about it. We track it to the day. So we know exactly where we are. Saturday mornings, we get together and see where we are. We've been doing this for years. And I think having that data gives you visibility and the ability to make changes today and then looking forward into the future. Having software kind of plug in your spending and your income and have that forecasted months and years into the future really give you the power to make decisions now to steer the boat. Like I can say, wow, next month I'm going to run out of money. Well, you better make some changes now. Or, wow, in 6 months I'm going to have an extra $1,000 in the bank. I can do something with that. I can invest it today. So it's really about data analysis and data management, and starting out right the first paycheck you get, right? Set up a simple budget, set up an emergency fund, and follow it through as you grow and mature as a financial person. Now, in terms of set it and forget it, I have not changed my financial strategy since I was 22, and I'm 48 now.
Okay.
So I said I invest a little bit more as my income has grown.
Right.
But really, really simple 6 or 7 steps, depending on what you choose in my book. There's 7, but I only personally do 6 of them. But I think if it's consistent, you have the bank take the money out every week out of your account without you knowing it automatically, and you just never touch it. Don't worry about the stock market going up and down. Don't worry about all the outside noise. Just let it and go. And that is the easiest, simplest strategy. There are professionals in the stock market who do this for a living. They buy individual stocks. Well, I don't know about you, Christina, but I wouldn't be able to beat an NBA player at a game of basketball one-on-one. I certainly don't think I can beat a stockbroker in stocks. So I keep it simple. I buy funds that are easy to understand and have low expenses. And I just do that every week for the last 26 years. And I think if people can start early at age 22, they'll be pretty happy where they are when they're my age.
I mean, exactly. I mean, I emphasize that constantly. If you people can just start in your 20s, do you know how much better off you're going to be with, and like you're saying, with not really any work, just set it and forget it and go on with your life and be smart. But you don't have to dive in and keep on top of what's happening in the market. Just forget about it. But I mean, dollar cost averaging, my husband's all about that too. Like there are simpler strategies to help you with that mentality, right? You don't have to dive in and be an expert.
Well, dollar cost averaging, that concept is great. It just means that I'm going to buy shares over time, regardless of what the price is. And therefore, I'm averaging out the price I pay for them. One crazy thing just within the last year, Christina, a year ago, when COVID first hit, the S&P 500 was down to, I don't remember the number anymore, but way down, right?
Yeah.
And if you had sold on that, if you had sold on that day, you would have missed a 50% gain from there till Thanksgiving. So you just don't sell. And if you never worry about it, you'll get a great price for the shares over time just through dollar cost averaging.
Exactly. All right, so let's move on to personal happiness and well-being, because like I said earlier, that also makes for a happy employee. You got to be happy at home and with yourself to be more productive and happy at the workplace. So I'm hoping you can elaborate a little more on some of what I consider my key takeaways from those sections of the book. And we talked, it was finding your happy place. It was overcoming the Sunday night blues, which I never heard somebody so eloquently like get into my head and express it that way, because I totally still feel that way. I felt that way in grade school, in high school, in college. I hated Sunday nights. The 6-month rule and the value of listening. So however many you want to tie those together, let's kind of go through those.
Yeah, sure. So the finding your happy place is just key. In my book, I talked about mine's baseball stadiums. So I travel to baseball stadiums, some with my family, some by myself. But if I'm really stressed and really need to unwind, I go to a minor league game, maybe a major league game, and I buy my ticket and I go sit in the crowd and I just like forget about everything. Now, I don't know why that works for me. Of course, I love baseball, but it just the stress just comes off my shoulders. And so I think that everyone needs to find what that is. Is it a hobby? Is it a driving your car? Is it hanging out with your kids? Whatever that is, it's really, really important, because as your anxiety and stress and responsibilities grow throughout life, you got to have that outlet, or it just becomes untenable. So for me, it's baseball. And I feel like I could write a whole book about that, which I might do someday.
You probably could.
Yeah, the Sunday night blues, that started for me, Christina, in college. I was a chemical engineering student, which was a pretty tough curriculum. And I would wake up on Sunday morning, and as the day went on, I just knew that, man, did I prepare enough? Did I study enough? Am I ready for Monday? Am I ready for that test? And I couldn't sleep. And that leaked into my professional career for quite some time, until I figured out a couple of strategies. One is I get up on Sunday morning and I write down everything that I need to do the following week. And by releasing that, again, journaling, writing it down with a pen and paper, it gets it off my chest. And then if something pops up during the day that gives me some anxiety, I just go back and add it to the list. And I can just feel it kind of leaving me, and I can enjoy those Sundays with my family. They need me, and I got back one day a week by doing that.
See that? Exactly.
Pretty simple. The 6-month rule is something that one of my mentors, Dennis, told me back in the day. And that is, if something is not going to matter in 6 months, it really shouldn't ruin your night, right? And we all have daily things that happen in our job. For me, right? Oh, a tool went down. A customer is going to miss a shipment. I mean, this is going to be a disaster. Is that customer going to care in 6 months? No. Right? So if it's not going to matter in 6 months, don't let it ruin your night. I mean, you still have to take action, of course. But let it go.
But it's all the mental thing at that point, right? That can bring you down. That's a tough one. I like that one, but that's a tough one to digest.
It sure is. And the last thing you mentioned was the value of listening. I didn't figure this out until really recently. I'm going to say probably 3-4 years ago, and it really came to my kids. My kids I have 3 of them. They're in college and high school, and really what they want, Christina, is they want you to listen. They want you to be present. There were times where I figured out the kids just want to be in the room with them, even if no words were said. So you have to have your antenna up with your employees, the people that work for you, your spouse. Be ready to listen when they need you, and that's really hard for a person like me with a noisy head. I really have to have the antenna up and unplug and make them the #1 priority in my life at that moment. And in mold building, when there's folks that are in the tool shop who are, focused all day on the tools, sometimes they just need to come up for air, and you need to be there for them and listen to what really matters to them, both personally and professionally. And I've really tried to sharpen that saw there.
I agree. That's a huge life lesson, is just listening, because I agree with you. I'm somebody that has a lot in my head, and I tend to do, with certain people, more of the talking, and I'm really trying to work on just stop and listen to them, because I'm just like vomiting my day, and it's like, sometimes why do I feel I have the right to do that over and over again? Listen more, listen, because maybe something they're going to say is going to help me with what's going on in my head. You're not going to know unless you listen, right?
Yeah, and you don't want to listen waiting for your turn to talk.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. You really want to just listen and listen, and it takes practice. I don't think it comes naturally.
I know, not to people like us. It sounds like, I think my husband is a fantastic listener. Like when we go on our walks and I notice I'm doing most of the talking, and it has to be, I really have to make an effort to shut up and let him talk, because then when he does, he's got a lot to say too, and most of the time he's just listening to me. So it is. Yeah, you have to make an effort for that. But everyone's different that way. All right, so I have to ask this. You mentioned your kids, this project, and the way that you are, and it sounds like you and your wife. So how has that, all of that insight and everything you do, are your kids like you? Have they read the book? Have they already applied a lot of what you put in the book? I gotta know.
So I have 3 kids, and I will tell you, they could not be more different from each other. It's crazy as kids grow up. I learned a couple of things about them. One is, as parents, we should just let kids become who they become. Okay. I had this dream that all 3 of my kids were going to be all-state basketball players and, be just like me. And as it turns out, none of them were. My oldest kid is more into politics than you can imagine. My second kid likes to fix cars, and my third kid is into dance. So nice. I'll just let them blossom into who they become, and they're all wonderful human beings. They've, to the same note, have grasped onto these notes in my book and read the book at different levels. My oldest is probably most aligned with me in terms of some of these concepts and really does these things kind of already. My other 2 kids have grabbed onto some of them. And as they mature and grow, I think they'll really, really enjoy the book. But I think all kids are different, and I'm just really fortunate to have 3 loving kids that I have.
That's awesome. All right, to wrap this up, we got through this quick. I'm pretty impressed with us. All right, what are your top 3 calls to action for those listening? Whether it's the shop owner trying to attract or retain a next generation professional, right? A parent, or even just the upcoming young adult. What are 3 things they should start off doing?
I'll give you one for each group that you mentioned. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah. The first thing for shop owners, and this is in our industry, but also all industries, I think we have a generational need to take the next step in terms of training and leadership for our new employees. Usually you put them through the 7-step process. Welcome to our company. Here are the code of ethics, those sorts of things. But I think we owe it to them to teach them what they didn't learn in school. And that's the personal finance stuff, the career development things, how to build relationships, because I think that will make a more holistically ready employee. Yeah. And it'll do 2 things. One, it'll make them happier, make them more productive at work, but I think it'll also make them stick around, right? Because we've invested in them holistically. And I think that's really, really fundamental to leadership. And I think it'll make our industry stronger. In terms of parenting, I touched on this earlier, but I really do think we need to lower our involvement, if that's a thing. Mm-hmm. I think we've become, huddling over them. Yeah. We're Facebooking every time they get an A on an exam. I think it's really time to step back and let them develop and blossom into the kids they need to be, and give them some space. It took me some time to learn that, and I think we give them the tools they need, give them the roots they need, and then give them the wings they need to fly away. So I think that's something we should focus on as parents. And then in terms of our young employees and the people I'm mentoring specifically, whatever it is, make a plan now. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be complex. It can be a simple Excel spreadsheet with 5 lines, but just do something. Get it done and make sure it exists. Fitness, finance, personal relationships, and in your career, take ownership and keep score and take stock of where you are and be self-aware of what needs to be done. I think those are important things to move to the next level for everybody.
Wow, there you got it. 1, 2, 3. All right, the name of the book, Jumpstart Your Future. And there it is. And the website to check it out is benlampron.com. Did I get that right?
That's right. Yeah, if you want to email me, you can connect through the website. It'll be on Amazon.com starting on April 6th. Awesome. And hope you enjoy the book.
Yeah. All right. Congrats. Thank you, Ben, for your time. And for everyone out there watching, remember, for everything mold making, visit MoldMakingTechnology.com. Stay safe and healthy. And more importantly, stay informed and stay inspired.